All right, so let's talk about a problem that I know drives a lot of people nuts. You're trying to install a Microsoft Entra Private Network connector, and bam, it fails. We've all been there.
You get that little red X, that installation failed message. And yeah, your first instinct is probably to get frustrated. But don't. We're going to turn that frustration into a really clear step-by-step plan. Okay, first things first, do not panic. Seriously, nearly every single one of these installation failures, and I mean nearly all of them, they fall into one of three buckets. We're going to call them our three pillars: connectivity, trust, and permissions. Get these three right, and you've solved 99% of your problems.
So, before we even start poking around and trying to fix things, we need to get our tools in order, right? You wouldn't work on a car without a wrench, and you shouldn't troubleshoot this without your diagnostic toolkit. Let's see what's in it.
All right, these three right here, they're going to be your best friends. You've got the connector diagnostics tool, which is like your first responder. It does all the quick automated checks for you. Then there's the classic Windows Event Viewer, which is where you'll find those super specific error codes. And finally, for the deep dive, you have the installation logs in your temp folder. That's the raw, unfiltered story of exactly what went wrong.
Okay, let's start with the big one, the diagnostics tool. Honestly, this should always be your first move. It's just a little command line utility, but it does so much of the basic legwork for you. All you got to do is fire up PowerShell as an admin, CD over to the installation folder, and just run the exe. Simple as that. And look at what it checks. This is why it's so powerful. In a few seconds, it tells you if you've got certificate problems, blocked ports, proxy issues. It even checks if the service is actually running. This little tool can save you, I'm not kidding, hours of guesswork right off the bat. So, what happens if the diagnostics tool gives you all green check marks, but it's still not working? Well, that's when you turn to our old friend, the event viewer. The admin log is where the connector service itself writes down exactly what it's unhappy about. You'll get more detailed error messages, specific codes. Just follow this path and you'll find the good stuff. All right, we've got our tools, we know where to look. Now, let's dive into our first pillar, which is honestly the most common cause of failures: connectivity. The big question we need to answer is this: is the path from your server to the cloud actually clear? Or is something standing in the way? I like to use an analogy here because it really helps. Think about your connector. It desperately needs to send messages to the Microsoft cloud, but it can't just shout into the void. It has to use very specific approved mail slots. And for our connector, those mail slots are outbound ports 80 and 443. If your firewall comes along and seals those slots shut, well, your connector is totally isolated. It can't send a thing. And what's really cool here is how simple this is. Look at this checklist. It's all outbound. You don't have to poke any scary holes in your firewall coming in, which is great for security. All the traffic starts from your connector and goes out. But, and this is a big but, if you don't have ports 80 and 443 open for that outbound traffic to the right Microsoft URLs, you're dead in the water. Nothing else is going to work. Okay, listen up, because this one is huge. This is the gotcha that trips up so many people. Your corporate firewall, your fancy next-gen proxy, whatever you've got doing security, it absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, do TLS or SSL inspection on this traffic. If it does, it will break the connection. I promise you, every single time. And here's why. It all comes back to trust. The connector and the Entra service have this secure, encrypted handshake that's based on a certificate. SSL inspection is like a well-meaning but nosy security guard who intercepts that secret handshake, pries it open to see what's inside, and then tries to tape it back together. The service on the other end gets this tampered with handshake, says, "Nope, I don't trust this," and slams the door shut. The connection fails. You have to create a bypass rule for this traffic. No exceptions. So that brings us perfectly to our second pillar: trust. If connectivity is about having a clear path, trust is about making sure that when the two ends talk, they can prove they are who they say they are. And in our world, that means one thing: certificates. This one's pretty straightforward, really. It's just a matter of checking the boxes for modern security. Your server, and just as important, any network devices between your server and the internet, they all have to support TLS 1.2. The installer itself is going to create a nice, strong SHA 512 certificate to establish that trust, and it's going to use TLS 1.2 to talk. If you're on a really old OS, you might need to run some updates to get this support.
Okay, here's a classic real-world scenario. Let's say you have a connector server that's been offline for months. Maybe it's a DR server that you only spin up now and then. While it was offline, its local trust certificate expired because, well, it couldn't talk to the service to renew it. Now you power it on, and nothing. It can't authenticate anymore. The trust is broken.
The good news? The fix is super easy. There's a magic little PowerShell command you can run right on the connector server. Register-Microsoft Entra Private Network Connector. You run that, it'll prompt you to log in again, and behind the scenes, it completely re-registers the connector, generates a brand new valid certificate, and boom, trust is reestablished.
All right, on to our third and final pillar, permissions. This one is so simple, but you would not believe how often it gets overlooked when people are in a rush to get things working. And of course, that just leads to more headaches.
Okay, this is a hard rule. It is absolutely non-negotiable. The account you use to sign into the wizard during installation must have at least the application administrator role in Entra ID. Sure, a global admin will work too, but let's stick to the principle of least privilege, right? Application administrator is what you need.
And here's the other permissions gotcha. You have to use a work or school account that belongs to your tenant. You know, an admin@contoso.com type of account. You can't just use your personal admin@outlook.com account. Even if you're a guest in the tenant with the right permissions, it won't work. The installer needs that tenant-specific account to know exactly which directory to register itself with.
Okay, so we've covered the big 3 things that go wrong and how to fix them. That's the reactive part. Now let's talk about being proactive. How do we design our network so these problems never even happen in the first place?
So let's nail this down with some pro tips for success. Rule number 1, the connector needs a direct line of sight to your internal apps. Don't stick a proxy server or anything else between them. It just complicates things. Rule number 2, which we hammered on earlier, configure your firewalls to bypass inspection for all the connector's outbound traffic. Just let it go. And finally, for the love of uptime, please install at least 2 connectors in a group for high availability. Don't have a single point of failure.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Take a look at your network. Is it an open highway for your connectors where they can just cruise along and do their job? Or is it more like a maze of dead ends with constant roadblocks from firewalls and proxies? Your goal should be to build that highway. Trust me, if you do, your life as an admin is going to be a whole lot easier.